Hey guys, welcome back to Election Center, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys my prediction for the 2020 United States Senate elections as of October 24th, 2020, which is today. So yeah, I'm going to be filling in these states here on this map in terms of how I think they're going to go, and sort of maybe we're going to be filling in the margin as well. So yeah, we're going to be looking at the polls, we're going to be looking at the forecasts, just looking at the data, and so yeah, just my current predictions for how these Senate races are going to go. So we'll start off by filling in these safer states where I might not have as much to talk about. Then we'll get to maybe some of these other races where I am personally going to have more to talk about. So yeah, starting off with these, safe races for the Republicans, we have these states down here, Tennessee, West Virginia, Idaho, Wyoming, Great Plains, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma. And so yeah, Louisiana, probably Mississippi, maybe likely in Mississippi. But yeah, and now for the Democrats, we'll fill in, Massachusetts, we'll fill in Illinois probably, and then, probably New Mexico, Delaware, probably New Jersey, Rhode Island. But yeah, maybe there's one state I'm missing here, but, I'll check up on Oregon. But yeah, that puts it at 39 seats for the Republicans, 41 seats for the Democrats. And so now we're going to be looking at these remaining states here where I'm going to personally have more to say. So we'll go sort of east to west. And, I think these states are going to be more competitive. But yeah, we're going to be going east to west pretty much. So let's start off here in Maine, where it's incumbent Republican Susan Collins versus Democratic challenger Sarah Gideon. And so Gideon has a bit of a lead here. If I'm going to show you guys Rookler Politics, they give her a 4.2 lead on average. And so this lead is not nothing, but it's also still at that competitive level. But something to keep in mind is that Sarah Gideon, her lead in Maine is smaller significantly than Joe Biden's lead at the presidential level. He's leading by, 14% or so. And then Gideon here with this more competitive lead. So that's something to keep in mind. Either Collins is running ahead of Trump, Gideon is running behind Biden. But yeah, I still think, all things being said and done, this is going to be a good year for Democrats in Maine. Republicans have not gained a foothold here in Maine so far. It seems like in 2020, they just have, things have not gone well for them in Maine. Collins, where they're dropping popularity. I don't think Trump is too popular here in Maine. And so yeah, I think this is going to be a good year for Democrats here in Maine. I'm going to give this to Sarah Gideon. Now in New Hampshire, we have incumbent Jeanne Shaheen, I think, versus Cory Messner, Republican. Let's look at 538 here. Yeah. So Shaheen obviously with a solid lead. This is probably going to go to the Democrats at the Senate level. Let's look at the presidential level. Biden also has a pretty solid lead. So yeah, Democrats I think are going to win in New Hampshire. Virginia state, maybe I should have filled in earlier actually. This is going to go to the Democrats in all likelihood. I think I saw a poll out of here that showed like a safe margin for the Democrats. But yeah, for these other states, I should probably fill in the margins. Maine is going to be probably lean, in my opinion, for Gideon. New Hampshire, maybe even safe for Shaheen. I'll just play it safe and give it just below that 15% mark for Shaheen. I'll do the same here in Virginia for the Democratic candidate. But Kentucky, this is a safe red state, but Amy McGrath, the Democrat, facing off against Republican longtime incumbent Mitch McConnell. Yeah, we've seen it be a bit competitive here in this race, and I'm pretty sure this race has gotten a good amount of publicity. But yeah, Amy McGrath, she doesn't really have much of a chance in my opinion. But we will see if this is a safe or a likely, maybe a lean, but I think this is probably going to go for likely McConnell. Alabama, this is going to go safe red. Now, interesting in Alabama, this is actually an incumbent Democrat, despite it being quite a conservative state, very conservative, very safe Republican. Now, Doug Jones was narrowly able to win the special election, 2017, I believe, against Republican Roy Moore. Roy Moore just had that huge scandal that completely sunk his campaign, and Doug Jones was able to narrowly win. But Tommy Tuberville Let's just show you guys these polls here. It looks like there's this one poll that shows Jones ahead, but every other poll shows a sizable lead for Tuberville. Let's look at these October polls because we're currently in the month of October. Tuberville plus 12. Tuberville plus 15. And going back to, September, all the polling data shows Tuberville. But, not even paying attention to the polls. This is just such a safe red state. I think it's going to go safe Republican. It was really, it really took a lot for this to even go narrowly Democratic in that special election. So, yeah, Alabama, safe for Tuberville. Doug Jones, incumbent, Democrat, probably not going to win. Probably doesn't have much of a good chance. Now let's fill in these 3 states here. Georgia has that special election. So North Carolina, this might barely go to Cal Cunningham. Let's look at the polling in North Carolina for the Senate. Cunningham, he had his alt scandal, and it doesn't seem to be affecting his numbers much. Tom Tillis, Republican. It's neck and neck, kind of. It's pretty competitive, but wow. Survey USA giving Cunningham a 10-point lead. Wow. Monmouth, numbers that make more sense to me. +4, +5, +1. But yeah. Let's look at the Real Clear Politics average. 1.7 lead for Cunningham in this average. So yeah. Probably going to be lean or tilt even for Cunningham. I'll give it tilt just now to be safe because it's going to be below that 2-point mark. So I'd say that's tilt for Cunningham. Yeah, it's going to be really a race, but probably just tilt for Cunningham. South Carolina, Jamie Harrison. Let's go to South Carolina here. Jamie Harrison putting up a good fight against incumbent Lindsey Graham, considering this is a pretty solid Republican state. But we look at these highly rated polls. They show Graham with, this likely lead. At best, this is going to be lean Graham. Jamie Harrison, really great fundraising numbers for Jamie Harrison. Something interesting to look at is the 538 Senate forecast. And I want to show you guys South Carolina because we think of this as a very solid Republican state. But they give Jamie Harrison not too bad of a shot. They give him 23% chance. That's 1 in 4, 1 in 5. So there are good amount of scenarios where they see Jamie Harrison winning. They point out though in a 538 article, the state of South Carolina fairly inelastic. The voters don't sway very much. So even if it's pretty competitive a lot of the time, it stays at that level where Republicans are winning by 10% or less than 10%, and then it's hard for Democrats to make further inroads. So Democrats are able to do well up until a certain point. Once they get to a certain number, right, 45% or whatever, it's hard for them to expand beyond that because the state is not elastic. I think this is going to go likely for Graham, more than 5 points. And I'm going by sort of the standard logic that I've seen. I've interpreted this as sort of the standard. Beyond 15% is a safe margin, 15% or more. 5 to 15, that's likely. And then there's more wiggle room once you get to lean and tilt. I think, 2 to 5 is lean. Anything below 2 or below 1.5, that's tilt. So I'm pretty much going by that logic for these characterizations of safe, likely, lean, tilt. But yeah. Now let's do these Georgia races. So we have a special election happening here in Georgia. And this is a primary here. Warnock versus the Republicans. Warnock probably going to win. And then I don't know what's going to happen going into that runoff. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to make that characterization bit later maybe, but I want to show you guys the main one, Purdue versus Ossoff. It's barely a lead for Purdue here. It's really close, and this might barely be tilt Democrat in my characterization. I do want to look something up though. What was the most recent Georgia Senate race? I can't remember. It must have not been 2016 2018. I'm just going to see maybe if there somehow was one in 2018. Well, the gubernatorial election quite close in 2018, but I want to see when the most recent one was. 2016 United States Senate election in Georgia. Wow, that was really solid Republican at this time, but the presidential race within 5. Maybe Donald Trump just as a candidate is not the best in Georgia. I'll just give this tilt to Purdue right now in my current prediction. And then the Senate special election I'll have to get to. But, yeah, now moving on to Arkansas, we have an interesting case. There's no Democrat on the ballot. So the only challenger to the incumbent Tom Cotton is Libertarian candidate Rick Harrington, who, according to the 2 polls that have been released, one was commissioned by the Harrington campaign, so they put the L next to it. Maybe it's biased towards him or something. They show him 12 points behind. It was like 38 to 50. Advantage Cotton. Subsequent poll was 63 to 28. And, Harrington is a third-party candidate, Libertarian. So he's going to do well for a Libertarian, but this is probably going to go safe Cotton. And I want to show you guys the 538 forecast here in Arkansas. Harrington jumped up a bunch in their forecast. They had him forecasted to get 17%. Next, it was 26%. Just a big jump there. Maybe it's because of that poll that came out or something, but I could see him climbing up to like 30%, or actually kind of to a tiny bit of a competitive level. I don't know. But for now, I'm going to have to give it safe Cotton. If you guys want to see sort of a similar situation that happened once, I'm not sure if this is really going to tell us about what's going to happen in this Arkansas race. Massachusetts had a similar situation where the Democrat was unopposed and there was only a Libertarian challenger. John Kerry, the Democrat, Libertarian challenger, he was the sole competition, and he only got 18%. So this is a safe blue state. There was the Democrat. No Republican challenger. Libertarian was able to pick up 18% because he was the only opposition, but that's not necessarily an exact parallel, so we'll see what happens. But that's just interesting to point out. That's what went down there. Now, Texas, from what I've seen, Democrats running pretty behind, and it's not competitive and close like it is at the presidential level. Maybe they didn't nominate a great candidate. Maybe the incumbent's pretty popular, John Cornyn. But yeah, MJ Heger running far below Biden, it looks like, or Cornyn running ahead of Trump. And so yeah, let's scroll down here to see what the latest poll was. Yeah, Quinnipiac +6 Cornyn, not bad for the Democrat, I guess, but yeah, this is probably gonna go likely Republican. I sort of forecast it at lean as at the presidential level, and then likely at this senatorial level. Now, next I want to show you guys Kansas, which might be actually competitive. We see Marshall, the Republican, against Bollier, the Democrat, and it's kind of competitive. So, but it's a safe red state. Now, it's competitive, but I forecast it being in that likely margin, above 5 for Marshall, based on what I've seen. Let's just show you guys here the 538 forecast. They're forecasting a likely margin as well, it looks like. And I think 538 might be a little too poll-based in my opinion. Just giving too much weight to the polls in their forecast. But yeah, likely is what I'm thinking. Let's go here to the Midwest. Michigan, we have Gary Peters versus John James. Republican, Gary Peters, the Democrat. And so yeah, let's look at Michigan here. I forecast it likely at the presidential level. And it looks like only these Trafalgar polls have James leading. And so, yeah. Biden's able to do better with blue-collar voters in, these Midwestern states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, than Clinton was able to do. He's outperforming Clinton in these states. And, Midwest swung sharply to the Republicans in 2016. Seems to be swinging back to the Democrats. Gonna have to give it to Peters by at least a lean margin. For now, I'll say likely. Maybe Biden, if he has any coattails, can help get Peters to that likely margin. I don't know if Biden has coattails, but yeah, now looking at Iowa, this is a really close race. Yeah, Joni Ernst versus Teresa Greenfield, the Democrat. Joni Ernst, incumbent Republican. Looks like Greenfield has the slight lead, but I'm going to have to give this maybe barely to Trump, because Iowa is to the right of the country as a whole. Gonna have to give this barely to Ernst, the Republican. Trump's probably gonna sweep Ernst in with him. And Iowa, it's just shifted away from that true battleground status. It's just shifted more to the right, I think. And it's really close here. But yeah, I think this is gonna be tilt Republican. Minnesota, let's look at. Okay, it looks like the Democrat has a solid lead in Minnesota, but we can't go by polls alone. Minnesota, here in Minnesota, the state could be trending to the right, but let's look here at the data. It's like a solid lead for Smith. Democrats doing well just because of the current circumstances right now. Gonna have to give a lot of these states to the Democrats because of the current circumstances. I'll give Minnesota by just in that likely margin, not like us that wide. I feel like there's room for another characterization in that 5 to 15 range. It makes sense where there'd be another characterization. There's a big difference between a 5-point win and an almost 15-point win, in my opinion. But yeah, still likely according to this logic that a lot of people use. Colorado, we have John Hickenlooper, former governor, going up against the incumbent Republican. This state's more to the left. This state's been more to the left. I think Hickenlooper's going to win. And I'll just say likely right now, because I could definitely see a 5-point margin here in Colorado. Yeah. Arizona. Polls could be tightening here, but Kelly has had a substantial lead throughout this whole race. Quite substantial. Mark Kelly, Democrat versus Republican. Technically, she's the incumbent, Martha McSally. She was just appointed, though, to fill a vacancy. She lost narrowly to the Democratic candidate in 2018 for, I think, the other seat. But, yeah, Arizona trending to the left. So Kelly here had that 11-point lead in this average. Got pretty narrow, or more competitive, 5.2. Went back up for a lead for Kelly. Now it's down to 5.6 again in this Real Clear Politics average. Let's look at these 538 polls, or the polls that are put on 538. There's more of them. It looks like they don't have averages really for these Senate races, but regardless, I think this is going to go to Kelly. It's really about the margin at this point. Do I think it's lean, likely, tilt somehow? I don't think it's going to be tilt. It's at least lean. And so, yeah, this state is, in fact, trending to the left in Arizona. I think Biden's going to win here by a few points. And Kelly, he's just had such a stable lead. Martha McSally, she wasn't able to win in 2018. Probably won't win against Kelly. So, since Kelly's been running ahead of Biden in the data, I'll give this by a likely margin because, say, Biden wins by 3 points. I could definitely see Kelly winning by 5 or more. But, yeah. Now, over here in Montana, we have former Governor, Democrat Steve Bullock, challenging Steve Daines, the Republican. Let's look here in Montana. Yeah, incumbent Steve Daines, he's the Republican, being challenged by former Governor, Democrat Steve Bullock, who tried to run for the presidency for the Democratic nomination. I don't think that went so well, but Daines having a bit of a lead. Now, this state is more to the right, but Bullock doing okay. Presidential level, it's a bit competitive. Let's look here. Okay, 7.1. That's a solid lead for Trump, especially considering Biden's lead at the national level. But yeah, this is probably just going to go to Daines. When we have Trump probably winning this by a pretty solid margin, hard to see Bullock running so far ahead of Biden. And this is just a Republican state, any way you square it. So the Republicans are going to have the advantage. And Daines here leading. I'll give this to him by a lean right now, just under 5. Because this state, I think the voters are willing to vote Democrat in cases because it's more competitive at the Senate level and the gubernatorial level than it tends to be at the presidential level. So keep that in mind. But yeah, now moving on to Oregon. I want to show you guys here in Oregon. This is just a safe blue state almost. There's not too much to talk about here in Oregon, I don't think. There's only one poll there on 538. It looks like they don't have any on RCP. But yeah, we're just going to say this goes safe Democrat. And Alaska here, I think there's a competitive race. Let me see. Yeah, incumbent Dan Sullivan. Al Gross, independent. Okay, I need to learn more about this race. Here we have the incumbent Republican Dan Sullivan versus Al Gross, independent, and John Howe, Alaskan Independence Party. There's Alaskan Independence. So we have 2 third-party candidates as the challengers. And let's look at the polling data. Gross here, doing really well, it looks like. Is Gross a notable figure? I wonder. Huh. So he's labeled as independent, but he's Democrat? So this is maybe some sort of coalition fusion party. I'm a little confused on that, but yeah. Let's look at the 538 forecast. When in doubt, look at 538 forecast. So I'm gonna look here. They think Dan Sullivan's gonna win, and this is a Republican state. I think Trump's gonna win by a likely margin, and it looks like Al Gross is pretty much the Democratic candidate. So I'll give this lean to the Republicans, a couple of points. But yeah, now finally finishing it off with this Senate election in Georgia. I think when Warnock gets to that runoff, it could go to him. I've heard that the two Republicans there trying to out-conservative each other to win that number 2 spot. And if they're going a little too far to the right, that might cost them the election, the general election in Georgia. So I think this could be tilt Democrat ultimately. Just my hunch. But yeah, 51 seats for the Democrats to 49 seats for the Republicans, with all the previous seats that aren't holding elections filled in how they are. So yeah, these are my current predictions for the 2020 United States Senate elections based off of the factors I've seen, based off of the data, and so yeah, based off of my political knowledge and instincts. So yeah, these are my final predictions right now, and so definitely let me know in the comments what you guys think of these predictions. If you agree, if you disagree, what your predictions are. I'm definitely interested in knowing, and I'll reply to your comments. Maybe we can have a conversation about these in the comments. But yeah, definitely leave a comment down below. And if you like this type of content I make here on this channel about election analysis, presidential elections, Senate elections, other elections, looking at the polls, filling in these maps, and I also talk about historical elections on this channel, all things elections. If you're into this type of content, definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel because my videos are going to be right up your alley. But yeah, I say it one last time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and thought it was interesting. And I'll see you in the next Election Center video. Bye, guys.